Lesson 2, the rotor gesture.
All right, so let's take a closer look at one gesture in particular, the rotor gesture. You know, becoming an expert VoiceOver user requires mastery of this particular gesture because it is so very powerful. Not only can we quickly access certain settings and controls, but if a page has a lot of clutter or there's a lot of items on the screen, we often access the rotor in order to quickly and efficiently navigate the screen. So to give you a good discussion of this particular gesture, I'm going to turn it over to our AI, artificial intelligent lady person. Please take it away.
My name is Nova, and you better not forget it, Mr. Sorry. Let's talk about the rotor. The rotor is a virtual control that works like a dial, allowing users to quickly switch between navigation settings or actions. It enhances productivity by giving access to specific navigation tools or modes without leaving the current screen. In order to use the rotor gesture, you need to place 2 fingers on the screen and turn them as if you were turning a physical dial. This gesture cycles through the available rotor options. Typically, one holds 2 fingers apart, usually the thumb and pointer or middle finger, about an inch apart, and twist your fingers as if opening a bottle cap as soon as your fingers touch the screen. Another example is like turning a knob on a stereo or adjusting the temperature knob in a car. Each time you turn the rotor to a new option, there is a distinct sound, and VoiceOver will announce the option out loud. You can continue to twist the rotor until you get to the desired option. Once you have landed on a specific option, such as speaking rate, you can then swipe up with one finger to adjust the value up, or swipe down with one finger to adjust the value down. When we use an option on the rotor that is based on navigating the screen, then using swipes will advance to the next occurrence or previous occurrence. For example, if I spin the rotor to headings, then swiping down with one finger advances to the next heading on the page. Swiping up with one finger moves backwards on the page to the prior heading. Fortunately, the options on the rotor only show up when available, meaning some will only show up when the focus is on a spot where those options are available. Also important to remember is that if the focus is moved while we are adjusting the rotor, then the options on the rotor may change in addition to the fact that the focus is now in a different spot altogether. What this means is that sometimes you expect to see an option on the rotor, but it is not there because the focus is in a spot where that option is not available. We can also take control of the rotor by adjusting the options that are shown when we use the rotor gesture. Often, we can add additional rotor options for occasions when we know they will be used. For example, if you used a particular web page that you became familiar with and knew there were just 5 buttons on the web page, then you could navigate down through the page just by buttons and locate your desired button faster. This means that you will need to add the option to navigate by buttons to the rotor. You can adjust the options on the rotor by going into Accessibility Settings, then VoiceOver, then Rotor. Look for a button that says Rotor Items, and then go through the options on the next page and select the options you want shown on your rotor.
All right, thanks, Nova. We'll try and remember your name for sure. All right, let's take the rotor gesture for a spin. And before we actually put it to use, I'm going to adjust some of the items, some of the options that appear on the rotor. So to do so, I'm going to jump into Settings.
Settings. Settings.
And then I'm going to find Accessibility.
Accessibility button.
And double tap.
Accessibility heading.
And then I'm going to look for VoiceOver.
Personalize iPhone in ways that vision heading. VoiceOver on button.
And double tap.
VoiceOver switch button on.
And now I'm going to navigate down to Rotor.
Rows 4 to 4 audio but commands rotor button.
And double tap.
Rotor items button.
And focus has landed on the next button that we're looking for. It says Rotor Items, and I'm going to double tap that button.
Selected characters.
Now this is a page of items that we can have on the rotor. VoiceOver will announce whether things are selected or not. Things that are selected are things that will appear on the rotor. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go and we're going to add 2 things to the rotor, and we're going to take off a couple of things. The 2 things that we're going to add are text selection and handwriting. And the things that we're going to remove are containers and keyboard input. And I'll discuss those as we get to them, but first, let's try and find text selection. So I'm just going to swipe down through the page until I find it.
Reorder selected words, lines, text selection.
There's text selection. I'm going to double tap and select that.
Selected text selection. Selected speaking rate, volume, audio ducking, punctuation, sounds, hints, braille table, activities, braille screen input, handwriting.
There's handwriting. I'm also going to add that.
Selected handwriting, selected containers.
There's containers. I'm going to remove containers because typically containers are useful only in screens that are a little bit larger, like iPads and MacBooks and things like that. Typically we don't use containers on the iPhone, so I'm just going to remove it from my rotor just to make sure that it's not there.
Containers.
And it is not selected now.
Selected headings. Selected form, links, tables, lists, landmarks, articles, visited links, non-visited link, selected buttons, text fields, search fields, images, static text, zoom, same item, vertical navigation, selected typing mode.
There's typing mode. I'm going to unselect that.
Typing mode.
And the reason why we do that is because typically once we pick a typing mode, and that refers to how we interact with the keyboard that pops up on the screen. Once we usually pick a mode, we tend to stick with it and not change. So again, all that we're doing here is eliminating some of the items that show up on the rotor so that we don't have to twist and twist and twist and twist to find something on the rotor. All right, now that we've made these adjustments, let's take the rotor for a spin. And to do so, I'm going to jump into an email where I know there's a lot of content and we can use some of the rotor navigation features in order to get through this content. Actually, before we leave this area, I'm going to navigate back up and I'm going to find links and I'm going to select links.
Reorder form controls, but links.
There's links. I'm going to double tap.
Selected
and
links.
I'll show you why here in a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to navigate into my mail app and I'm going to open an email.
App switcher. Settings. Active. Mail. Active. Mail. Mail. Message content. Bug fixes.
All right, so I now have a rather long email that I know has headings in it and I know has links. So I'm just going to touch here and put the focus in the middle.
Message header. AppleVis newsletter. AppleVis Unlimited. What's new and noteworthy for November 2024?
All right, so this is an email from a website, AppleVis, and they always have a lot of good content about news and things that's going on in the iOS world. So by default, I would swipe to the right to kind of work my way through this email.
Message content. AppleVis Unlimited. What's new and noteworthy for November 2024? Heading level 2. Link. Bookmark.
And you heard even there's that text right there is a heading and it is also a link. So swiping to the right would allow me to go through that email. If I do a 2-finger swipe down.
AppleVis Unlimited. What's new and noteworthy for November 2024? Heading level 2. Link. Bookmark. Welcome to the November 2024 edition of AppleVis Unlimited, your monthly digest of the latest and most notable content on the AppleVis website. This edition features a curated...
All right, so 2-finger swipe down would read down the entire page. But sometimes we don't want to read the whole thing. Sometimes we want to just navigate. And in particular, we use this notion of headings. I know there's headings in this email, and so I can utilize the rotor to navigate through the page by using headings. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to spin my rotor until I hear it say headings.
Edit. Live recognition. See buttons. Links. Form controls. Headings.
There's headings. Now, if I flick down.
An opening thought. Heading level 3.
I've jumped down and that indicated that was a heading level 3. If I flick down again.
New and noteworthy app entries. Heading level 3.
And so you can see every time I flick down.
Airbnb. iOS. Free. Heading level 4.
I can navigate by headings down through the page. Likewise, I have added links to my rotor. So if I spin my rotor, I'm going to spin it the opposite direction and get back to links.
Handwriting. Form controls. Links.
There's links. Again, if I flick down,
Arabans Applevis iOS app directory entry. Link.
there's the next link. Flick down again,
Arabans App Store page. Link.
and there's another link. We have all kinds of navigation options on the rotor. And the rotor is very specific about where the focus is. It's very contextual, meaning sometimes things show up on the rotor and sometimes they don't. It depends on where the focus is. So I'm just going to spin real quick and go through my rotor and just see what's on the rotor at this particular spot.
Messages.
Messages, because I'm in an email, if this email thread had multiple messages, message 2, message 3, message 4, I could swipe up and down and go through the different messages in this email thread.
Edit.
Edit, there's quite a few things here in edit. I'm going to flick down.
Select all.
We can select all.
Select all. Select all. Select all.
And that appears to be the only thing for edit right now. If I had things on my clipboard, a lot of times you'll get the option to paste. So let's twist the rotor again.
Live recognition. Scenes. Off.
Live recognition is a feature that uses the camera and it tries to analyze things through the camera. It's almost like a stripped down version of an app that we love called Seeing AI. Let's continue though. Twisting the rotor again.
Buttons.
I have added buttons to my rotor. There's lots of times where I go to areas and there are buttons and I can flick up and down. I don't know if there's any buttons here. I'm going to flick down.
Toolbar. Archive. Button.
And because of the fact that it said toolbar, that means it jumped all the way down out of the email, down to the toolbar that's at the bottom of the screen. So there's no other buttons in this email, but I didn't expect any. So I'm just going to move the focus back here to the middle and touch in the middle.
The fastest, easiest way to Airbnb find inspiration. Plan a trip with your group.
All right, so the focus is back here in the middle. I'm going to keep twisting the rotor. Because the focus moved, the rotor has probably reset. So I'll have to twist through some of the options that we've already heard.
Messages.
Messages.
Edit.
There's edit.
Live recognition. Buttons. Links. Form controls.
Form controls. If I'm on a website that has a form on it, a place where I can put information like name, address, things like that, those are all called form fields, and we can navigate by form fields if we want.
Headings.
There's headings. We've talked about headings.
Speaking rate. 55%.
Speaking rate is something that's on there by default. Sometimes we like to make the speaking rate go faster,
60%. 65%.
and sometimes I need it to go slower.
60%. 55%.
And again, that's just flicking up and down once I have speaking rate selected on the rotor. Let's continue.
Text selection.
Text selection, we're going to take a look at that when we get it to text editing and navigation. And this is something if we want to copy and paste, or we want to just surgically delete a word or two, we can use text selection.
Words.
Words. If I leave the rotor on words, if I flick down,
The fastest, easiest way to.
every time I flick down, it's jumping to the next word. If I flick up,
To. Way. Easiest. Fastest.
that will navigate word by word backwards. Likewise with words,
Characters.
we have characters on the rotor. If I flick down,
Cap F. Cap A. Cap S. Cap T. Cap E. Cap S. Cap T.
it just went through the
Tango.
word fastest, and it'll read it character by character. All right, what else is on the rotor here?
Handwriting. Lowercase.
Handwriting. I'm actually kind of surprised handwriting has shown up. Typically, we don't see handwriting show up on the rotor unless we are editing a text field. And we're going to do that here in a little bit in another lesson. But typically, handwriting is only for when we want to type on our phone, and we can use our finger like it's a stylus, and we can handwrite on the screen and it'll type for us. But again, we'll get to that here in a little bit.
Actions. Activate.
Actions, sometimes you come across a spot on the screen and there's multiple actions that can be done on that spot. So action sometimes shows up on our rotor.
Messages.
And now we're all the way back on the rotor, back to messages because we're in an email. So that is a quick tour of the rotor. Remember, the rotor can be spun either direction. All right, so if the focus changes, the rotor will reset. Additionally, sometimes things do not show up on the rotor because in that particular spot, we don't get that particular option. All right, so anything else you'd like to add, Miss Nova?